Welcome to the demo. Please keep track of loose articles. Please lean towards the window for the best video. Let's do it. 32 hertz, just pound and pound out. 28 hertz, just come on out. Feel like a monster, landing on your chest. Can't breathe in or out, no room to rest. Hammer drop, coming in clutch. Buzzing your brain, make your chest wheeze up. Vision gone blurry, yeah, your eyes messed up. Start counting the seconds till the pressure lets up. And the hook come around, yeah, hit that hard. Cash that check, punch that card. Big bass drop, hit every zone. 28 hertz, bring it straight back home. Demo, demo, gotta get that demo, demo, gotta get that demo, demo. Savage sounds go demo. Welcome to the show. Cap seal tight when the waveform bloom. Air get thick like a pressure vacuum. Dash start rattling, wires on low. Every bolt in the frame say here we go. Sound don't knock, it leans on your spine. Crawl up your ribs, locked in time. Air gets thick when the drop comes down. Slamming hard like a wave of sound. Your mind says stay, but panic sets in. Hold on tight and endure the wind. No rush moves, just control demand. Bass don't ask, it takes command. And the hook come around, yeah, hit that hard. Cash that check, punch that card. Big bass drop, hit every zone. 28 hertz, bring it straight back home. Demo, demo, gotta get that demo, demo, gotta get that demo, demo. Savage sounds go demo. Welcome to the show. Let it roll, let it breathe, let it stretch. Long notes don't let your mind connect. Chest caving, but the smile stay wide. Wanna run, but your love is right. We send it hard as bass rolls by. Sun goes low, but the tide is high. Team Savage Sounds is here to stay. Big subwoofers are here to play. System talking a language pure. No flash, no trick, just pressure cure. When the hook come back, crowd sings along. They feel the power, know the song. Demo, demo, gotta get that demo, demo, gotta get that demo, demo. Savage sounds go demo. Welcome to the show. Demo, demo, gotta get that demo, demo, gotta get that demo, demo. Savage sounds go demo. Welcome to the show.
What's up, guys? What's up? Good times all around. And we are looking at Audacity right now. So I want to talk a little bit about rebassing tonight, and I know you guys will have questions and I will have answers. I'll do my best to get to those here in a little bit. Right now, though, we are going to be studying some waveforms, and I'm going to show you guys what I do whenever I rebass a track or whenever I create a track. In this case, I'm actually able to create a track, meaning I'll start out with stems, and stems are basically tracks. Each one of these is a track. So you have your bass track, your drum track, other, which is unknown, synth, percussion. This is extra drum fills in different spots. The backing vocals are the background vocals, and of course the lead vocals. And you can isolate each one of these individually. Now, when I start out, the first thing I do when I pull all my stems is I put my bass and my drums down here on the very bottom. And I do that because, number one, I want to know where the bass notes are in the song already. And number two, I want to be able to line up my new notes with the drums. And you'll notice that if I show you an actual drop here, if we zoom in on this spot right here, the drum beat is here, right? This is the bass drum beat. If we solo that, now let me solo it completely. There we go. So you can hear that's the bass drum, and then this is the note that's following that. So if we do this whole section right here, and then we also solo the bass, we get that, right? All right, so what's happening here is the note is accompanying the kick drum. And you notice how it builds up here as the kick drum fades out. Well, that works pretty good for most music, 99% of the music out there. But if you're wanting to create a note that has some solidness to it for a demo system, what we want to do is drag this down here where we can get line up on it. We can see the note up here, right? We can come in here and we can have this note end at this point, which will make it feel more solid. And if we just generate a tone here, I'm going to show you. First of all, let me cancel that. Let me see what note this actually is. So we'll go to Analyze, Plot Spectrum, and the hump down here is 37 hertz. So we know that's a 37 hertz note, right, to start with. Now we take and create, let me move that and redo it. Create it, and I want to start it at the beginning of the drum beat and end it right at the beginning of the next drum beat. So then we would do generate a tone of 37 hertz. All right, we'll generate that. Now we'll let this play. I'm going to mute this track so we don't hear the original bass. We're just going to keep that and this, and we're going to just run a little piece right here. So comparing that to this, you can hear they sound pretty good, and in some cases those notes look pretty good. Now you notice how this note has this waviness to it. That's a problem when it comes to big subs and doing big walls. We want very consistent patterns like this instead of more musical patterns like this. So for the average listener, this sounds better. Okay. But whenever we're doing something big in a big car audio stuff, and we're putting big subs in danger, we would have it sound like this. Far more consistent. Now, if I want to keep these notes right here, I like this little run up, right? What I can do is, after I get this one placed, I can use the line from this up here, and I can copy this whole section, and then Control C. I'm going to back up a little ways, give it room to drop in. And I can't because it's supposed to be a stereo track down here. But well, I can do it a different way too. I can actually delete this, so I can come in here and then go up here and hit the flatten button, and then it'll just play this part. So I'm just trying to show you guys how this all works. And I'm going to highlight enough of this to play this whole thing, and I'm going to also solo that track. So, all right, and we can also come in here and create these notes as well. But this is part of the process of rebassing a track. You want to get that good solid bass, and you got to find each note. So we can go through here and go doom, 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 doom. We could copy each one of these, highlight it, find out what the frequency is, and then notice how they have these harmonics in here. Well, we really don't want those in a bass track. That's why we're only worried about the very bottom one, which would be 54 hertz. And we could do 54 hertz. We could also cut that in half and do it at 27 hertz. And that would be the same frequency, the same note, but an octave lower. So depending on how low you want the track to go, you can do that. In that particular case, we would go to 27. That's pretty low for a lot of systems, so we might not do that one there. But there's another note right here. We can do the same thing. Analyze it. Check out that bottom frequency. It's 58 hertz. That's a little bit more doable. That'd be 20, well, still pretty low. So we'll go down here. We'll look at another one. And you have to go through and do this on the whole track. It's a lot of work. So that's also 54 hertz. This is a lower frequency here, if I remember correctly. Yeah, that one's 73. So that one we could lower down. We could lower that frequency down to to 36.5 or something like that. And that would give us a nice low frequency there. So, but you have to figure out what you're doing exactly. And that note does have, it's got a harmonic. So it's actually got a 30 something harmonic in it. But the harmonics are good for another thing. If you're creating a track for someone to listen to on their phone, like for example, this note, and you want to also have bass, you can actually create the bass note here at this 54 hertz, but you create a harmonica of it at 109, which will come across the phone. So whenever you're listening to tiny speakers, you'll actually hear those bass notes. That's important. But when you keep going with the harmonics like this, we're going to a 164, you're getting into some nasty territory, and you're going to end up with things that don't sound right on a good bass system. So this is kind of the workflow that we go through to do a rebass. If you're asking anybody to rebass a song, so not only is this little section right here what I'm showing you right now, everything, but then you have all the other stuff because this song is long, and it may not have the same melody all the way through. It has lots of breaks. It has lots of other stuff, and then there's other stuff that I do as well. So if I'm working on a track like this, which this track's going to be crazy when I get done with it, by the way, it will be going up. You guys are going to love this track. But another thing you can do is if you've got a spot where you don't have a bass note. So in the example here, we got this boom, 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 boom. So that's going to continue to repeat more or less. But we could also add other things. Now, I'm not going to put this here as a staying thing. This is just an example. So we're going to take this bass note out, and let's say I got this kick section right here. So if we play this, all right. Now you might want to add a little bit of flavor, right? So you can come in here and pick up on the snare hits, and depending on the length, is all going to be to taste. But we can go to generate a chirp, and then we can come up here and do something like a 500 hertz to 30 hertz chirp, and you'll understand what that means. This is the amplitude. That's the frequencies it's going to start and end at. This is the amplitude it's going to start and end at. And I want this to be a high-pitched chirp, something that makes like a pew, like a phaser sound. So I'm going to change that to a 7, and then I'm going to let this thing go down to like a 2. And we'll preview it. You hear that? All right, so we generate that, and then we can copy it and paste it over here. This is just an example of things you can do, not things you should do. But if we go ahead and play that, so you can get some really cool effects in a track that way. You can also create drum sounds like that. This is not really a drum sound. This is more of a straight up electronical sound, but it is pretty cool. Now, if you've got a drum solo that's happening in a track, like what's going on right here, that's a very long, drawn out thing. You could do a lot with this. You could do something that went do 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 do, right? So you would just start out with that frequency being like 400 hertz to 30, and you would do that. Then you would do like a 300 to 30 and a 200 to 30. So it'd go do do do, and then you would do that twice, do 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 do. Then you start here, do 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 do. Right. So you could create a really interesting a piece right here with just this little breakdown that it's doing. Anyway, these are all little things that I work on whenever I'm doing a rebass or creating a bass track to figure out how to give it flavor. This is a really good song. And to start out with, of course, you have to write your song. So here's the lyrics to the track right here that I wrote. And of course, if you're going to use Suno to perform the music, you're going to have to write things specifically so that Suno can understand what the hell you're wanting to do. And And up here, you have to put in intro so it understands this is the beginning, and then spoken in brackets. So then we have welcome to the demo. Please keep track of loose articles. Use periods at the end so that Suno knows to stop the sentence there and also to go welcome to the demo. Not welcome to the demo, but welcome to the demo. How to pronounce the words. And then we go straight into verse. And I did something tricky at the very beginning of this because I wanted to see if I could make it work. So we bracketed verse. We have the first part. It's automatically going to perform that part. And then I have it say spoken in brackets. Then I have come on down. So it's going to rap this part or sing it. And then it's going to speak this part. Then it's going to go back into rapping again. That was the idea with this oddball verse. Now, how did that turn out? Let's listen to how it turned out. Let me go back to the beginning here. And I'm going to unsolo. I'm going to leave that because I have broken the bass line, but don't worry about the bass line because it's something that's in a work in progress. But let's hear what that intro sounds like.
Welcome to the demo. Please keep track of loose articles. Please lean towards the window for the best video. Let's do it. 32 hertz, just pound and pound now. 28 hertz, just come on out.
In that case, he kind of sung the come on down. But in some of the pieces that I got from Suno, they actually pause and speak it. But that's just an example of things that you can do. You have to build it so that the AI understands what you're trying to accomplish. And I'm going to tell you something. Learning how to prompt an AI is actually an art form all in itself. You may think it's easy mode. Sure, I could say, Suno, write a rap about car audio. And it's going to write a rap about car audio, but it's going to suck. In order to get things to sound good, because although lyrically an AI is capable of writing a song completely on its own, it doesn't mean that it's a good song. And so you have to, one, write your own lyrics, or at very minimum, correct the lyrics that it writes and make it better. The second thing is you have to learn how to speak AI so that the program knows what you're wanting to hear. Imagine if you're in a room. Imagine if you're in a room and you've got a mirror between you and the band. The band just sees you, but you can't see them and you can't talk to them. So you got to use sign language through this one-way mirror to communicate what you're trying to get them to do. And then you can hear what they do, but they can't hear you bitch about it. So you have to hear it and go, oh no, that's not it. And try to figure out a way to communicate with your hands what you want them to change, how frustrating that would get. And that's exactly how trying to prompt an AI to do something specific is. But we are not here exclusively to talk about this stuff tonight. And I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of a taste of what a rebasser goes through. Now, a lot of rebassers do a different thing than myself. They use other tools which are faster and easier to work with. And this is what I'm doing is like the hardest way you can do this. But it's also the way I learned. So there's that. Now, before we get carried away, I want to show you guys something that Bobby sent me. Bobby B is probably in the chat. I hadn't looked at the chat yet, but he sent me some pictures, and I know he wants these pictures. I want you guys to see what he's doing. Because you know Bobby B has been working on wiring. It takes him forever, but he does good shit. So let's look at what Bobby B has done. Let's jump back over here. So here is the DSP right here from Down for Sound. Got an amplifier. We got an amp-center. What I'm more interested in is the quality of work he's doing with this. So not only does he have his wires, his RCAs run, but also notice that they're each color-coded. So he's went and color-coded each RCA to know exactly where it goes, where it ends up at, and what channel it's controlling. I like these cable stays he's using to hold everything down. And I don't miss anything, guys. Notice that he's using hex screw heads, and they're flush. Very machined, very nice looking, very clean work. I'm very impressed with Bobby's work as always, because he does really good stuff. Let's look at a couple other shots here. So here's another shot showing his runs down here and all the work he did with the 5-star ruler, getting those zip ties pulled down perfectly. I think the cleanliness here is just impeccable. Excellent, excellent work, Bobby. And we got like one more, I think. This was kind of cool because it shows his run curving. These are things, okay, so I want to point out something here. If we go back to this, you can see where this line's coming in. So this wire has to be a very specific length to go out and curve naturally, go into line, go this way, and then curve back. And it's a very natural curve. That wire has to be a very specific length to do that. That requires a lot of pre-planning and a lot of thinking through your wiring on your amp board. You've got to think it through. How is this going to go? If that wire had been a couple of inches longer, it wouldn't have worked right. It had to be right, which means you got to get the wire length right, the position of the equipment right. You got to really think through each one of your runs. And look how clean he did those two. Those look really good. All of this looks really, really good. Really good. Bobby B. And look at that one. Oh, nice shot. Nice shot. Bobby ain't playing, y'all. And he's got the old grandpa chairs back here, too. He's got the grandpa chairs. Oh, yeah. But yeah, I'm digging it, man. Bobby does good work. He does. Let's see what we have in the long list of comments over here. Well, Joe Mama is in the house, or Joe Daddy. That's Joe Daddy, by the way, guys. If you're wondering, that is Joe Daddy. He changed his shit up because he likes to be incognito. Yeah, he said he's changed his name. Bobby says, "Yo." All right, let's look at what Joe Daddy had to say. Recently, I've been dealing with a problem with my subs. When I turn the volume up, my subs they turn off, but when I lower the volume, they turn back to normal. That means you're not getting enough voltage to your amplifier. When you turn the volume up, you're pulling more current and your voltage drops and your amplifier goes, no, I can't run at that voltage. It's what turns off. That's called protect. That's normal. That's normal operation. That just means that you ain't got enough power to drive that amplifier to that volume. Simple. Let's see here. Can't even blast because the amp keeps shutting off. Yep. Power. You can't make power out of nothing. If you're putting 10 amps in there, then the most you're ever going to be able to pull out is like 7 or 8 amps, which is 70 or 80 watts. You try to pull 100 watts out of it, you're going to run out of juice and it's going to shut off. What's up, El Fuego's in the house. Bobby B sent me here again. He said, let's see here. Yeah, El Fuego, that's Joe Daddy. Corn nuts in the house, apparently. Corn nut for the win. I can see your comment, dude. He's asking you can see his comments. I can see his comments. Cobbles. Cobbles, what's up, man? W the Discord King. I'm just looking through here. All right, what's up? Texas Real 007. Run 1 or 2 subs. I have a Ford. Super Crew was thinking, I don't, middle channel. Um, More cone area is going to give you more potential. So if you want to play low and loud, more cone area is going to make that possible. You can play low on a small sub with very little cone area, but getting it to be any volume to it's going to take more cone area. So, but you don't want to sacrifice having enough uh, enclosure space to let that one sub perform. Putting two subs in a box that's half again too small is not going to net you twice the output. It's not going to. It's probably not even going to play lows as well as a single sub. So it all depends on how much volume, how much box volume you have. Um, Getting that box volume right for this sub that's in there is more important than getting more cone area. That said, if you can put more cone area and still have the airspace to have those subs perform properly, you're definitely going to be able to play lows louder. Uh, and I don't know about the middle quotes. Subs, Cornut and the gang. 6, 7K subs. I I don't know. Texas said I almost fell asleep on the keyboard. That's the life of a gamer, man. I've fell asleep on my mouse and my keyboard playing World of Warcraft years ago, and woke up and I was running up a tree. My character was just trying to climb a tree. Now, the sad thing is, you would think I woke up and I got okay and I went to bed. No, I woke up and started playing again. I had my nap in. I was good. It's bad, man. Uh, El Fuego said, drop it an octave. Yeah. And here's my trick with that, El Fuego, is I try to stay above 27 hertz for most music, like in 28. Actually, for most of my stuff, I try to stay around 29 or higher. I only drop down into the 25 and 26 and 24 hertz on a few tracks that are specifically titled so people know that that's going to be really, really low. Because most people play 29 and up pretty constantly, 30, 32, 31. And so most of my tracks reflect that. I do have some that I get down low with, and I might do that with this one. Actually, I think this one's going to be a 28 and a 32 because it's in the lyrics. And I have a ton of work to do that song. But there's more. I can also change the whole pitch. So if you open up all your tracks and you go through there and individually change the pitch of each track the same amount, you can lower the whole track entirely, like whenever they change the pitch of a song to rebass it. You can do that, each individual track, or you can raise the notes depending on where you need to be. So if you want to make a 32 hertz note to ride on, right, the bottom note, and it's sitting at like 60 hertz or 50 something hertz, you could raise the whole track to like 64, to where that bottom note is a 64, and then you can lower it to a 32, an octave, and get your get your level. And the good thing about working with music that isn't already a song is that no one realizes you lowered the pitch of the guy's voice because they're not used to hearing it at a certain pitch, and so it just sounds normal. But and also, of course, you don't have to worry about copyright strikes. Stupid copyrights. I got you. Retype my cue. Bobby Navazi. Fuzzy amp. It's very bad. He's talking about the Fozzy. I think I know what you're talking about, but I'm not 100%. Uh, oh, the little Fozzy. Okay. Yeah, I caught up now. Again, your amplifier is only going to be as good as your power supply is. If your power supply is weak sauce, then your amplifier is going to be weak sauce. And also, if you're not giving it enough current, a lot of times it will sound bad just because it doesn't have enough power to sound proper. The circuitry's just everything's just not going to work right. So power supply is really your biggest thing when it comes, especially running in home and home environment, because you have a very set limited amount of current that you can supply. And you can't. A lot of guys running big stuff, they end up using multiple circuits in their house to run all those power supplies because they need more than 20 amps off of one circuit or 15 amps. You don't want to pull more than 15 amps out of a wall socket for any length of time. So they'll run 2 or 3 different plug-ins that are on different circuits in the house just so they can have enough amperage to run. And it's crazy stuff, man. It gets really crazy. Not necessarily. You could build a car audio system into a car that you're not driving. I've done it. I did it when I was a kid. I did it when I was your age, actually. You get your stuff and you get a car that's just kind of sitting somewhere and park it behind the house there and run power out to it and put batteries in it. And you can build a whole car audio system in a car that you can't drive yet. And then you can hang out, sit back there and chill in it. I did that when I was a kid. I was in the car all the time listening to music. So you absolutely can do it. I had the same problem you did. My mom didn't tolerate loud music in the house whenever she was there. So if I wanted to listen to music, I had to go outside to do it. Worked out great for me, man. If I could just buy a real amp and battery, but it's a lot harder doing this in my room just to go outside because my mom hates it. Yep, that's real. Uh, let's see here. I can't pronounce that. Misophonia? Something probably that has to do with sound, I would guess. Hence the name phonia. Some of those fuzzy amps use the powerful Texas Instrument TPA chip. Yeah, deal what that means. All right, they're helping you work out the fuzzy amp thing. I'm going to keep sliding through here and looking, make sure I'm not missing anybody. El Fuego says, how long do I need to grow my beard to hit a 145? Uh, Not very long. I was hitting 45, almost clean shaven. I just had a little goatee, a little tiny goatee. The longer your beard gets, though, the louder you get to be. That's how that works. It's directly connected. So basically, what you do is whenever you start building a bass system, you just stop shaving, and then as your beard grows, you'll be louder. It works out. It's a thing. ZZ Top link. Hell yeah. People keep saying the amp is going to protect. Yeah, it is. That's what's happening. It's shutting off because the voltage dropped. And we're on Bobby. This is where I was showing you Bobby's pictures. Stereo. Oh yeah. Yeah, Big and Low said that's clean, Bobby. I hope the 12-volt Clean Wire Club picks you up. Well, if you submitted it to them, they'll look at it. You got to. I don't know if that's. I don't know. He sent me those in Messenger, so I don't know if he's got them listed on there or not. And we thank you for showing up, buddy. You're always fun and entertaining. Let's see here. Why does that stupid little box always pop up when I do that? All that work and the amp rack is going to hide behind the seat. Yeah, well, I mean, it's not about what you can see, it's about what you know is there. And so And I promise you, he'll be leaning the seat up and showing everybody on a constant basis because that's what people do. That's what I would do. So it's going to be hidden, but it'll be getting shown. Plus, he's got pictures. So, you know. More importantly, though, if he ever run into any issues, he would know exactly where to find them. He'd be able to go straight to the problem and sort it out. That's always a nice to know thing. And whenever you put your hands on every wire in that kind of a way, when you're doing this with your wiring, that means you are paying a lot of attention to what you're doing. Little stuff is not going to sneak by you because you are so hyper focused on everything that you're not going to do anything wrong. That's always good. When you when you take the time to put your hands on it and really work on something like that, um, you're not going to miss details, and that's my philosophy. Uh, let's see. So let's see what he says here. The subs are dual 8 subs that are wired to one ohm. And Debbie says, and there it is. Um, Fuego. Zero. Zero ohms. Oh man, you guys are too much. Hey, hey, what's up, Bass Jeep? Bass Jeep says y'all hit the like button. Yeah, go ahead and knock it out of the park. I'd appreciate it very much. What's up? Band My 360 says 48-volt, 5 amp each. They can use discrete OP amps. Okay, put it in their car. Ha! Yeah, that won't fly. He gets beat up just talking about music. He can't even, if he just says, "Hey, music," she's like, "No." His mom's rough on him, man. Oh goodness, I love it. I grew up with the same scenario, so I can talk shit because I know. Just saying. Texas Real 007. What's the best under the hood battery to deliver to run on a daily driver that will discharge quickly? Uh, Battery for what? The car audio? Um, there's not really a good under the hood battery for car audio. If you absolutely cannot run any lithium inside, you can always run a bank of caps under the hood, but you're going to pay for those. The caps don't care about the heat though, so they could technically go under there, but you're going to need like a couple thousand farads to really get the performance that you're probably looking for, which is usually like 5 or 6 will equal about 500 farads. So, and you're going to need like 24 caps or something like that. It's a pretty big bank, and they're not cheap. So you can figure about $300 per 6, right? So you're looking at like $1,200, and I'm just giving you real ballpark numbers. You're looking at like $1,200 worth of caps, and that's going to perform about the same as a trunked under lithium 5K, or maybe one or two Big Jeff lithium batteries, and take up a lot more space. And that's not going to give you the reserve performance. That's just going to give you the pulsing performance, which is what you're asking for. But that's like 4 foot long, three or 4 foot long by 6 or 8 inches tall by 8 inches wide. That's a big chunk of real estate to try to find. You can reshape them and configure them into something that looks like a battery, but it's still going to be twice the size of a normal battery. It's still going to be a pretty good size chunk of stuff that you've got to put somewhere. And it's not going to perform as well as the lithium would. Under the hood, man, if you just want a good AGM battery, um, the Odyssey is probably one of the best AGM batteries I've seen. Um, and Odyssey, was it Extreme? Odyssey Extreme? But it's still not going to do what you're wanting it to do. But as far as batteries go, yeah, it's a really good battery. Um, get it right. Yeah. Well, here's the thing, man. You're learning right now, and that's the part that takes the time. Making mistakes and figuring it out. That's the stuff that sticks in your head. You don't gain that knowledge from watching videos. Really, you gain it from making sparks and blowing shit up. That's how the deep knowledge sticks in your skull. I could tell you all day on how to do everything, but you wouldn't remember any of it. But whenever you set something on fire, you won't forget that. That's a permanent thing. When you melt a bunch of wires into a cluster because you did something wrong, you won't do that again. Not the same thing anyway. When you hook up an amplifier wrong and you blow it up because you hooked it up backwards or whatever, you won't make that mistake again. These are things that you learn, and you're in the phase now where you're learning. And fortunately, the stuff you're learning with is not expensive stuff. So if you blow something up, as long as you don't burn the house down, it's just an expensive lesson. It's not a, complete life altering situation. So stay on that. Another Motel Jesse James story. I'm trying to think of a good one. I told you about the bum, didn't I? I think I told you about the bum. The other guy that was staying with yeah, that's the one I told you guys. I didn't tell you about the haters. I'll tell you that one. So, first of all, I have to preface this was we're talking about a place called Motel Jesse James, also known as uh, the Confusion something. It was like a little fun park kind of thing behind or adjacent to a hotel that was in Branson, Missouri, where everyone come to Silver Dollar City, where they would wind up at these little smaller attractions, latching onto the Silver Dollar City. So we were there, and this old hotel had at the point where I was staying there. This was in like 80, like 91 or 92, I think. It was pretty much just a piece of what it used to be, but it was an old hotel, cheap rent. We could rent it by the week, and for those of us that were working in Branson, it was basically the only way you could afford to live there. I was staying in the hotel, and I had this other guy that lived next door to me in the room next to me. He was like the only black dude I met in Branson ever the whole time I was there. His name was Ben. He was a big guy, big guy. But one of those gentle, soft people that like is just totally the opposite of what he looks like. Yeah. So anyway, he was living next door to me, and I was sitting out there on the bench outside my room, strumming a guitar, working on a song in my head. Not the song specifically, but I was working on another song. And there was a group of guys that were working on highway stuff. They were like private contractors, but they were working on doing some kind of road project in the area, and they were all staying at this hotel for the week. They were all, well, probably three or four of them, I think, were out in the parking lot. One really loudmouth guy was up on on the balcony on the second floor. The other guys were walking around, meandering around the parking lot, and they were all out there spouting. They were all drinking beer. They were out there spouting racial slurs. I'm going to try to keep this part out of it because it'll screw up the metrics and everything, the visibility of my video. But they were making racial slurs about black people. And I sit there, I was ignoring them. And then it got to bother me. It got to bother me really bad. And finally, my mouth just did things. You know how your mouth sometimes does something that your brain is not connected to? Like they just disagree on it, and your mouth kind of wins the argument. And I just spoke up and said, I have a lot of black friends. And that was all I had to say. Then I got called a blank blank lover and a bunch of other shit. And they all turned toward me. The guy up on the top up there, he starts meandering over toward the stairs where he can come down. The other guys are closing in, slowly waddling over with their beer in one hand and their mouth, going. And I reached up there. I said, well, we done did this now. So I just opened up my hotel room door and I stuck my guitar on the inside and I shut the door. I wasn't going in there, but I put my guitar back in there. I didn't want my guitar getting wrecked. So the three of them ended up walking up on me, the guy from upstairs and two of the guys in the parking lot. They ended up walking right up in my face. And they said, what do you got to say now? What do you got to say now? And they were using lots of profane language. Again, I'm trying not to throw this into the thing. And they said, we're going to kick your ass. Right. And about that time, Ben opens the door up and he steps out there with me. And he said, I hope you got enough for me too. And at that point, 2 on 3 of the numbers were just too flip flopped, and they backed away. Like, oh shit. Because I mean, Ben, like I said, the dude was like maybe 6'7", 6'8". He was a monster. He was an absolute monster. But he had, like I said, his temperament was so soft and so mild and meek. But when he walked out the door and spoke, he spoke in his southern voice. It had body to it, right? And yeah, that shit ended right there in the parking lot. And then I went to they didn't want none. They backed away. And I went to the front desk and I told them, because I've been living there for months. I told them what had happened. And that night, the cops showed up and literally all those guys ended up getting arrested for whatever reason. I don't know what they got busted for, but yeah, Motel Jesse James, hell of a place. Um, Sometimes we make your heart just decides to do something when your brain's like, no, wait, shit. Oh shit, it's out now. Damn, I don't know what happened. Well, here we go. It is what it is. Um, there's another story. That's the only other good one I have. Texas Real 007. I have a JL RD 1000.1. Okay. With two 12W3 DVCs, that's sealed box. But I want to build a ported light to match my amp. Either 8 W3s, not enough air for 4. Yeah, focus on your enclosure. Anytime you do something like this, it's enclosure first, then it's subwoofer second, and then it's power third. So first thing you have to do is figure out the enclosure that's going to work in that space. And then put the most subwoofer you can put, still leaving enough airspace. And then put the amount of power on them necessary for them to function properly. That's the order of operations. Box, sub, power. And of course, your electrical is always going to need to be there, but it goes along with power. As far as going ported or sealed, it all depends on what you're trying to get. If you're trying to get a whole lot out of a little bit, then ported is going to give you more of that. But if you're going for sound quality and really lows, really dynamic sound with a lot of impact and quick responses, quick transients and stuff, a sealed enclosure is going to give you way better of those things. So it just depends on what you're trying to get in your ear hole, right? Which one works. And ported enclosure is going to be more efficient around that port tuning, but it's also going to have group delay. It's going to have more slop in it. It's not going to play as low in the end unless you tune it stupid low. And if you tune it stupid low, you're not going to get the impact that you're looking for either. It's going to sound like a sealed enclosure, mostly with an extra low end shelf, which is what I like. The problem with trying to tune that low though is you also have your airspace. You're going to use up all your airspace with a port just to get it tuned that low. So ultimately, usually the best option for that kind of an environment is a sealed enclosure. Um, but it all depends on what you're after. It's like there's no one rule that solves them all. See here, Joe is steady going. Um, Hell yeah, man! All right, yeah. See, that's respect right there. Thank you, Joe. That's respect. Uh, let's see. Texas says or build a center box, 12 or a 15 single in the middle, magnet out firing in with the box filling under the seat about 3 cubic foot total. 3 cubic foot, you're going to probably want a 12. Most 15s don't like a box that small. Um, that would be solid. A 12, if you can put a 12 and get 3 cubic foot in there for a 12, that would be a nice low playing box. That's going to play low even as a sealed enclosure because you're going to have quite a bit of airspace for a 12. You don't want to put that a 15 in there. It's just going to suffer from it. I prefer whichever works best in the specific case that I'm doing. Visually, I always prefer the magnets mounted out, but that's a visual thing. It's just what I like to look at with the subwoofer. But more importantly, I use the mounting solution that works best for the specific situation that I have to work with. Uh, what's up, Brain Dead? Thank you very much for the compliment, but I do not feel a legend. I'm more like the crowd idiot. So, what's up, Corley? Would there be any real reason to get audio control epicenter? I know it restores bass, but is it worth it? If you want to play like 70s and 80s and yeah, pretty much 70s and 80s music and have lots of bass in it, yeah, it's worth it. But if you're not trying to do that, it's usually not. Especially if you have an aftermarket stereo. It all depends on what you want to listen to. If you're trying to hear good, solid, deep bass, and these older tracks where they didn't really have any lows, they were, they couldn't make the low frequencies really low because they would eat up too much space in the record whenever they were recording it onto a record. The frequency was so wide that it would make the track really eat up a lot of territory trying to play low. So that's why they didn't do that. But if you're wanting to reproduce that, you can do what I do with when I rebass tracks. You can basically drop it an octave using the epicenter, or the epicenter will drop it an octave or use a harmonic of the sound too. So like if dropping it an octave, put it way too low, you can always drop it to a note that's in the same chord, the same family. For example, if you make a C chord on a piano, right? That's C, the E, and G. C, E, and G. So if any of the notes, if the note happens to be a E note and you don't want to drop it an octave, you can always drop it to a C, which is 32 hertz, 32.7 actually. So you could drop it to a C and then you'd have a note that was right. Without dropping it a whole octave, you'd drop it to a C. And it would still sound right. It would still set right in the mix. And that epicenter does that on the fly, basically. 20-year break. All right. Never ran them out before, but just starting back after a 20-year break. Yeah, they can be, man. New cars are definitely tricky. Blue Collar Misfit, welcome. After watching your ported flat wall build videos, I'm fixing to build one myself for my '06 Silverado crew cab. With two Dreamsicle 18s on two Fried Rice 4Ks. Oh, yeah. With a glow voltage 120 amp hour bank. That's very nice. I might recommend that you run dual inputs on your fried rice 4Ks. I know they don't need them uh, power wise, power delivery wise, but I would double up those inputs um, to prevent heat buildup on the power supply end of the amplifier whenever you're doing stupid shit. It'll help keep the amplifier cool on the spots where it needs that cooling. But I think you'll be very pleased with what you get. Might be a little bit too low the power wise. You could probably use a little bit more power, but starting out lower if you've already got the equipment and everything, it's not going to be a big deal. I think you might probably double that power though on those subs, but I'd have to research them again to get the specs. But I'm thinking it's probably going to be about twice that much is what you'll want. But you can always do that. You can always buy two more of those amps and run one on, run them on separate coils or whatever. So there's all kind of stuff. Yes, yes, that's exactly what happened, man. Um, but we got it done. We was going to get it. We was going to get down out there, man. I was, I was 22 years old, uh, 240 pounds, and mostly muscle. And he was a whole lot bigger than me, so we had that. We was going to do things, but as soon as the odds evened up just a little bit, they wasn't having it. It's 3-1 now. They were all in, but no. For real, my friend. Um, Texas says the 2025 F-150 Super Crew. Okay. Fiber out to a JL VXI 800.8. Yeah, all Hertz three ways and nice setup. And a two-way all active with DSP. I'm not 100% familiar with everything that you're talking about, but I mean, you're using the JL 800.8, 800/8. I think that has a DSP built in, so you're using that DSP to output to an RD 1000. Yeah, that's solid, dude. Very solid. Nice gear. Be a nice setup. Take your time on your box. Make that count. That's going to be the centerpiece, and it's also going to be the key to making everything else work. Take your time, get the box perfect. Best advice I can give you. Okay. Working on problems. Let's see here. Let me dig down a little further. They're all saying ported. That was you. Morning number pro tuning. Yeah. I wanted to thank you. Didn't remember your name. There you go. My current enclosure doesn't allow this, but we'll be upgrading and building a new box eventually. Anyway, mounting subs normal versus inverted pros and cons. Yeah, technically, maybe. No, this is the statement. Does it cool better? Well, I've heard it kind of depends on what you're doing in the vehicle. Like if you've got airflow over the coil and it's outside the box, and you've got like fans, or if you've got your port set up in such a way that it blows air across the coils, it probably does cool a little bit better. But here's the thing with when it comes to thermodynamics, you're only going to lower the energy in a surface as low as the temperature of the medium you're using to lower it with. In other words, if the air outside the box is 80 degrees and the air inside the box is 80 degrees, you're only going to be able to cool it to 80 degrees, period. No matter how much 80-degree air you blow over it, it's still only going to go down that much. And I'm going to tell you that the air inside your box when you first fire a system off is going to be cooler than the outside air, most likely. But as soon as that thing starts playing, it's going to circulate so much that it's not going to change a lot. So it's more about getting air to flow over it and bring it down to that ambient temperature. In fact, The space program had a hard time dealing with heat in space, and they still do, because there's no air up there. And so, whenever anything generates heat, they have to store the heat somewhere. They use water tanks, and they take the water and circulate it through and build up a thermal, build up that water. The water is the thermal mass that sucks it away from the electronics, right? And then the water will just get hotter and hotter, and the water can only shed that heat via turning it into light. And it's not light that you can see, but it is a light wave coming off that tank of water, and that light leaving dissipates the heat, but it's very extremely slow. That's why these things work so good, is because there's no air between the outside and the inside shell. Whenever you take that air away, there's nowhere for that thermal energy to get out or to exchange with the outside energy. And in space, that's a real problem. So they had to use tanks of water, and they could only run a computer long enough to the point to where the tank of water heated up to the point to where it was no longer cooling anymore. And then it was just, they decided to shut that computer down and run a different one. And then the heat would slowly uh, give off light, and that light would slowly bring the temperature down. The thing is, in a body in space, like if you were in space and you just got out of your spacesuit and just floated out, you would die from no air, but your body would stay the same temperature for hours and hours and hours, because there's nowhere for that heat to go. There's no air for that heat to get pulled away in. There's no medium to get rid of that heat. So your body would just be floating through space at something resembling the temperature that you were when you died for hours. Like you see in the movies, so they freeze over. That doesn't happen. There's no way for that to happen. Space isn't cold. It isn't hot. It isn't anything. It's no temperature. There's nothing there to be a temperature, right? Crazy shit. But my brain goes, I have a lot of crazy shit in my head, guys. Um, should I do, let's see here. Texas, step up my sub amp, but I want to match the amp, the RMS amp to speaker. Yeah, that's what I've found. I've done that. It depends on what you're doing. If you're building a stupid proof system, yes, matching your RMS of your amp to your speaker is always a good idea. But if you're able to listen to what you're doing and pay attention to what's going on, you can run significantly more power than that. And what I've been doing recently is I'm looking at, because I'm running double the power on my Oblivions, my Slaps Oblivions right now. But when you have impedance rise, when your subwoofer's moving and it's generating power, it's like basically a generator, and it's pushing the power back toward the amplifier. The amplifier is pushing power towards the speaker, and this impedance is happening. As that circuit, which is that whole thing is a circuit, as the component of that circuit that's generating power this way and the component that's generating power this way meet in the middle, the overall amount of power getting to that ends up seeing a whole lot more impedance than it does at just a resting ohm load. And that usually adds up to like 3 to 4 ohms of resistance. At that point, that 4,000 watt amplifier is only actually getting out maybe 2,000 watts at that frequency range, which is where you're getting down the most. So having twice the power start with ends up being the right amount of power in the end. There's something to be said for all of these ways of thinking, though. It's not just a one shot, one thing fixes all. But understand that you're only going to be getting half, maybe a little more than half the power out of your amplifier at impedance rise, which you will experience. So I don't know. Anyway, that's my thoughts on that. But I get it. I mean, I've always give that advice. Run it the same RMS as what the sub is. But right now I'm running double that. So Fuego said I've been tinkering with Subbox Pro. I love messing with that. It's a great little program, totally free. I use it all the time. It's a great starting point. I have it. In fact, I have it as a tab over here on the system. I can just whip it up anytime. I just will open the tab up. I've got a box that I was working on a guy. This isn't a box per se. It's because he's not building it this way. He's going to have the port located differently, and the subs will be on the top instead of on the side. So visually, it looks wrong, but dimension wise, it's a good setup for what he was wanting to do. So I had this opened up, and I got some parameters and come up with an idea that would work pretty good for him. But again, he's going to be mounting the subs up here on the top, so they won't be like doing that, hanging off. But you can get some pretty good designs that way. And I use Subox Pro all the time. That's my favorite um, little go-to problem solver. It gets you close. The thing is, though, if you're going to put a bunch of money in something or do something crazy, you might want to use that to start with, and then get a basic design and send it off to a buddy who can emulate it and give you like the port velocities and all that stuff. And make sure you're not building something stupid. But yes, I use it all the time, and it works. I would say probably 95% of what it puts out is doable thing. Um, let's see here. I missed something. Okay, there it is. What's louder? That's that word, louder. What's louder, dual 8s ported or a single 15? Um, I would rather have a single 15 set up than dual 8s ported. But single 15 doesn't always fit in the baffle constraints that you have with your enclosure. If you're trying to put something under the seat of a truck, for example, um, with the little risers and stuff, you can probably put 2/8 on a baffle, whereas a single 15 is just not going to fit anywhere in that space. It's just going to have too much mounting depth and too big of it's just not going to fit. Whereas 2/8 can. But you're also calculators, and I'm not looking it up. And I'm just in this conversation, I'm assuming that they're both the same amount of cone area, which they're not. There's calculators online where you can see what the cone area comparisons, which is a good way to know at least if you're in the ballpark. And a single 15, I believe, has significantly more cone area than 2/8. But if I was comparing two small subs to one large sub, insert whatever sub we want to, and they both have the same amount of cone area equaled up, I would still prefer to run the single large sub. There's something to be said for all of it, though. There's no real concrete answer for that. Uh, let's see. Epicenter for classic rock. Yep. Absolutely. What's up, Mr. Spike? Hello from Missouri. Uh, let's see. Yeah. Oh, that's nice. Running each amp at 2 ohm. That's going to definitely take the load off the amplifiers. They're going to see a whole lot less stress that way. It'll cut your power output in half on their amplifier, but they're going to see a ton less stress. Um, yeah, it's going to sound good, man. I think you're on the right track. 2/8 like Solo X. All right, got numbers here. DD audio with about 2 cubic foot. That's okay. Bottom 7, rear 9 to 10. On the front was 6-inch port, 22 inches long. I'd have to do all the math to figure out whether or not your numbers are right. Basically, you've already done that, so I'm not going to, not necessary. I will say that running 2 square subs is going to make your baffle more efficient because you've only got so much space. If you can do that, running 2 square subs is going to net you like 30% more cone area over round subs and the same baffle constraints. So I'm all about it. But the only thing that catches me is 2 cubic feet. Um, that might be enough. I don't know. I'd have to look at the specs on, but don't. And you're not talking about crazy power, so don't clamp down on the airspace. You don't want to. You don't want to start clamping down on the airspace unless you're putting a lot more power on a sub than whatever it's rated for. If you're staying within rated power or lower, you want to have more air volume inside the enclosure to allow that sub to move properly. If you're not going to give it enough power to force it to move right, you have to give it enough airspace so that it's not building up too much pressure and it can still move. Basically, that's the nuts and bolts of it. And as a general rule, if a subwoofer is rated, say, from 500 to 700 watts, for example, RMS, if you're going to put 700 watts or more on it, you want to look at the cubic airspace that they recommend. So if they say 500 to 700 watts, and let's say they say 2 to 3 cubic feet, if you're going to put the high number of wattage on it, you want to put the lower number of cubic feet on it. And then the opposite. If you want to put the lower wattage that's rated on it, then you want to put the higher internal volume that they're recommended. That's how those two things correlate with each other. And most of your good speaker manufacturers will give you those numbers to know basically where you sit. If they only give you one RMS number, assume that is the smaller of the enclosure volumes they recommend. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Mm. All right. Now that's fixed. Okay. Let's see what else we have here. Let's not continue that conversation about this small mammal. I deleted that chat and blocked that person. Uh, T. Corley, I know you're covered in in the previous but CMAX safe to run in your daily. Well, that's like a whole lot of open-ended questions. Is it safe to run under the right circumstances? Yes. Under the wrong circumstances, no. And how many watts will it support? It depends on which CMAX bank you're talking about. Um, so again, that's an open-ended thing. There's not a clear answer to that. Um, if you're referring to the CMAX bank that we were looking at the other day, I don't know. I'd have to study it. I hadn't really dug into it to that point to figure out the wattage. I don't want to give you bad information. So, um, but is it safe? Well, if you're, as long as you're not charging over voltage, and as long as you're not charging it while it's cold, as long as you're keeping a close watch on it and not doing anything stupid, probably. Probably. Is it safe to let your kid play with the lighter? Probably. Um, let's see here. Run bows. Tell us you run bows without telling us. Hey, I don't have any problem with bows. Here's the thing about bows, man. Let's keep this shit real because I don't like haters hating because they just want to join the bandwagon and hate. That's brainless activity to me. I don't fall for that. That was still it. But anyway, the thing about bows is they've always been very innovative and done really, really cool, creative stuff. And a whole lot of the crap that they've done in the past, a whole lot of the innovations that they made are being used in everyday products today. Like you go buy any kind of small speaker that produces a whole lot of bass, but that's thanks, all of that is thanks to Bose and they're figuring out how to cram a lot of bass into a very small cavity. You know, they're an innovative company that are continually innovating and always have been. Is their products the best you could buy? No. No, most of the time there's a sacrifice with them. But if you want something the size of a clock radio that can actually drop 20 hertz and make you feel it, there you go. You know, I mean, they're not afraid to go all the way out into left field and do weird shit. And to me, that commands a lot of respect. I think Bose should be far more respected as an inventive and innovative company that's brought a whole lot of cool new designs and abilities to all the modern tech that we're listening to on a constant basis. So my hat goes off to Bose. Uh, Not going to say that, bro. I still say today, right now, as we speak, that JL makes the best thin subs you can buy, bar none. Bar none. The TW3 and TW5, two of my favorite subwoofers out there, and nothing else gets close to thin subs that JL makes. Nobody makes a thin sub like JL Audio, period. Um, so they are definitely still relevant as long as they stay within their weight class. That's the key. Um, all right, yeah, there you go. Here's some info. Yep. BMS, and yeah, I agree. Thunder Lithium is much safer, but yeah, it does exist. The Jag 35. Do I have that opened up there off the top of my head? No, I do not. I do not have that opened up. I ain't gonna dig it up. I ain't gonna do it. I ain't worried about them, man. I deal with one every now and then. I show them a door and keep going. Uh, or Bobby does. If he's paying attention, he'll get them too. Let's see here. JLW67 seems way overpriced. So many other cheap ones out there. And that's again, that's them being outside of their safe spot. If JL is if you're trying to build something super thin and small and have a lot of bass out of it, yeah. But if you're trying to build something and compete with virtually anything else out there, you're going to pay way more for it than than you're gaining. But if you've already got them, use them. You know, and I mean, how cool would it be to have something that's hitting a 160 with all JL audio equipment? That would be cool. It would be very cool. It'd be like, oh, what the hell's going on over there? It could it be done? Yes. It would cost you like 6 times more money to do it, but it could be done. Uh, I do not have an opinion because I have not studied those. And I apologize for that, but I just don't have enough room in my head to put everything. Uh, let's see here. Could do better. Texas. That was amazing. Digging down. You can do better than that, homie. Let's see. I would hear your opinion. Why? Okay. Why I would do a single 15 over dual 8s. Okay. Anytime you have multiple drivers in an enclosure, you're already asking for misalignment in the waveform. So, and I have currently have 4 drivers in an enclosure. So this is a thing we just have to deal with. But your subs are not, no matter how perfectly they're set up, no matter how carefully they're matched, they're not going to do exactly the same thing that the other subs are doing. You're going to have some variations, and those variations end up causing the waveform to have kind of a weird fuzziness to it. It's not as smooth and clean. Um, so, in general, I'd rather have one driver representing the sine wave as multiple drivers trying to represent the sine wave. That's basically the reasoning. Sometimes that's not an option. I mean, you say, if all was equal, if all else was equal, would they sound the same if they were this? If the 2 small drivers had the same exact amount of cone area as the large driver, and everything was equal, they would sound the same to your ear. Um, but if you measured them, you would notice slight variances whenever you deal with multiple subs. And if you are trying to pick between them and you have no other constraint, why not choose the one that does not have the variances over the one that does? That's the thing. So we're splitting hairs here. But I don't know what the cubic inches are on those. Dubby, Dubby, you're messed up. Those 12W3 flat DVCs are pretty hard for seal box. We need a little more air. I like the W3s, man. Um, and I'll tell you what, I like my favorite enclosure for under the seat in a pickup truck, bar none, is the stealth boxes from JL. I've taken mine apart when I got it and put it in my Chevy. I opened it up, and that thing is thick, thick box. I mean, it's all fiberglass, and it's hand laid fiberglass. So they build that frame and hand lay the fiberglass, sand it. They do a ton of work on those boxes. Um, they're extremely rigid. They're beautifully built. They fit the space exactly and look factory when they're done. And they're exactly matched to what the airspace that you need for the subs that are in those boxes. They are brilliant SQ boxes, 100%. Great sounding equipment. Um, yeah, look at the stealth box from JL. Price that out. It's going to be expensive. The thing is, though, you're going to like it when you put it in. Is it going to rattle the windows? No, but it's going to represent the frequency range nicely. It's going to dig really low and really smooth and give you a lot more than you think it will. Plus, it bolts right in without any issues. No fuss, no fuss, no muss. What subs do you recommend for me? It'll be slamming. Oh, of course, I've heard of American bass. Um, Slaps, man. Slaps for what you're doing, especially. I mean, Slaps is perfect. It's a budget sub that does amazing shit. I mean, those guys they can beat on uh, in the same space, the same weight class as some of the mid tier sundown stuff. And I say that because I know, not because I see, but because I know. You know, um, I go to competitions and run anybody that's relatively close to my class. They're going to have a hard time beating me. Um, and no matter how expensive the stuff is they're running, it's just the Slaps gear just does what it does. Um, if anyone wants to come to a show in Little Rock, Arkansas, God, I hate freaking Little Rock. Um, Puts on Wake the Dead. Oh, that's cool. I didn't do the Wake the Dead this year. Maybe I'll do it. Maybe I'll do it this year. I didn't do it last year. I don't like being around tons of people. That's my problem. I don't like being around huge amounts of people. And then I've got the ability to move around now. I've got a scooter where I don't have to walk because my legs don't work that well anymore. But I'm not a fan of crowds. But and Little Rock, I ran around in Little Rock. You know, I did. I grew up in Arkansas. I ran around over there on 21st Street, 22nd Street, MacArthur Park, Petaway Park, 21st Street Grocery. You know, a little rinky dink store where everybody goes and buys all their drugs. I ran around all there in that neighborhood. So I'm very familiar. Well, that's actually in North Little Rock, but I'm very familiar with Little Rock. At least I think I am. Anymore, it's, you know, my brain's old. Gotcha, boss. We're putting a 5K tar amps on 12-inch dual American bass. Be worth it or no? Now you need to worry about your electrical before you start buying big amplifiers, because you're not going to be able to do shit uh, with a weak electrical system. Batteries and power supply to charge those batteries are the key things for you to focus on right now. Phoenix Gold. Oh man, PPI Art Series. Hell yeah, had all the paint splashed on them. The punches. A whole lot of cool amplifiers, man. The Phoenix Gold MS275. Yep. I didn't have my hands on all of them, but I'm very familiar with them. Um, the thing is, though, those old amps are kind of like old muscle cars. At the time, whenever they were out, they were the biggest, nastiest thing we'd ever heard. But if you go back and pull one of them up now and stack it up to any of the modern amplifiers, they get destroyed. Like just like the average minivan can outrun a muscle car from the 70s. It's just technology for you. But cool amplifiers, 100%, bro. I saw a thing. US Amps is going to be selling a bunch of their backroom stock. They had a bunch of surfboard amps in the image. The old uh, 44 inches long, I think. They're almost 4 feet long. Absolute missiles of an amplifier. And of course, today they're nothing, but I'd still love to get my hands on one of those. It'd be really, really cool. And I would put it to work doing something. Um, I'd put it to work doing something. I wouldn't let it sit. I don't know what, but I'd put it to work doing something. A bass set is born. Funny shit. Uh, Trunk Thunder Lithium, not trunk full of lithium. So that brings up a point, though, I want to talk about. So I had people asking on chat in another video about Trunk Thunder Lithium and what is going on with that. February. Somewhere between the end of January and the end of February, things should get straightened out. Um, and it's kind of up in the air because we don't know about shipment timing. And that's a huge problem right now. And I'm a Trump fan. Okay. I'm a Trump fan. I am a Republican fan. But Trump is absolutely the cause of that right now. And hopefully, the pain that we're experiencing right now from dealing with the tariffs and stuff will eventually net a better trade deal with China and things will straighten out, because right now it's a monstrous train wreck. Uh, Hopefully it'll change though. We are getting more manufacturers moved into the United States. So let me you know what? I'm gonna take a little moment here to explain to my people about tariffs, because not everybody understands how tariffs work. There's a ton of misinformation and people have made a lot of assumptions, and Trump is the cause of a lot of the misinformation. He doesn't tell you everything. Okay. And I'm going to explain what tariffs are. A tariff is basically another word for tax. Okay. Just get that out of the way. It's a tax. And the people who pay that tax are the people that are importing stuff from another country. So if China has a 100% tariff on the stuff they send in. The port has to look at that and go, what's the value of the stuff that's in this box? And then they say, okay, well, now we're going to charge whoever picks this box up, i.e., the people in the United States that are using or distributing that equipment. Whoever picks that cargo box up has to pay the price for the box from the people in China. But they also have to pay the same price again just to get it in the port as a tariff. That money goes to the government. So what a tariff is, let me rephrase this one more time, is the country receiving the goods has to pay a tax on the goods they receive, and that money goes to the government. One of the last times, and everybody knows about, is the Boston Tea Party. People stopped paying the tax to import tea. Okay, that was the government charging a tax to import tea from somewhere else. That was a tariff. And they got mad and threw all the tea in the water. Said, screw it, we ain't paying it and nobody's getting it. That's what that was all about. Literally, tariffs are the exact same thing. The problem gets worse, though. Since the tariff is in fluctuation, and 1 week it's this amount, 1 week it's this amount. So whenever the thing comes into port, it has to sit there until we figure out where the tariff is right now. And then they have to pay that tariff to finish getting it in. And it's really, really, really causing a shitstorm of problems in the car audio world. But that's what tariffs are. The country that you're tariffing, they don't pay shit. It's the people importing it into the United States that pay that tariff. We pay that tariff. When you go buy that now increased price equipment, you're paying that tariff. The reason that Trump uses that to cause to help the country, his reasoning is, if you charge enough for the tariff to import stuff, it gets to be cheaper to build it in the United States. That's what that's all about. If we're having to pay 100% more for the same thing from China, and the overall cost ends up going up here, if we can turn around and build it in the U.S. and the cost is here instead, then we get more local production. And that kind of works. But China don't have to pay shit. What China loses is sales. So if people stop buying stuff from China and stop paying the tariff because they don't want to pay the tariff, they stop buying that stuff, then China loses the sales. That's the only place they get hit. And that's how tariffs work. So for anybody that don't understand it, now you do. Basic tariff math here. Why wouldn't you charge a battery when it's cold? Lithium doesn't like to convert electrical energy into chemical change in a state below a certain temperature. So in order to put energy in a battery, you got to put electrical energy in, and that electrical energy causes physiological chemical changes to happen in the battery, which stores that energy, and later on it will turn that chemical storage back into electrical energy. Well, whenever you get any battery below a certain temperature, it doesn't want to do that anymore. It will still try, and it will get hot and catch on fire. And yes, AGM batteries can do this as well. They have a lot more tolerance, but they can. And every different types of lithium have different temperatures they can be charged in. You can discharge them much lower than that, but charging is where the real problem comes in. And basically, that liquid becomes crystalline material, and it doesn't want to work like a battery anymore because it's too cold. Same way you get too cold and you don't want to do anything either. Absolutely. Trunk full of lithium. Hell yeah. Get a trunk full of lithium. Yeah, just pay attention to what you're getting. That's the key. We've gone down this road before. Supposedly, they're designed to handle underhood heat temperatures, but I have a personal problem with putting any lithium under the hood of a vehicle. That's me. Do what you want. That's me. Let's see here. Okay, I don't get the A, B, and D amps. It's the circuitry that converts direct current. Well, technically, yeah, direct current going into the amplifier into alternating current coming out of the amplifier. Uh, Class A, going back, and I'm digging deep into the old noodle here. Class A had a problem with drawing a lot of power even when there was no music playing. It was very clean, but it pulled a lot of current to keep everything hot. Class A and AB was a variant on that was more efficient about not burning up energy as heat and making more of it in the music and turning off the system when in between notes so it wasn't pulling as much current. And class D is way better at doing that. It's basically it's only active whenever it's producing a note, and then it goes over to an inactive state. Very fast switching technology. The original Class D amplifiers were much slower with that switching technology, so they would turn in the light switch on and off, but they were doing it so slow that you could actually hear that happening in the music. You could hear that switch turning on and off. Uh, as that tech, and so it was only really good for a bass amp where you didn't where the frequencies were fairly low, so it didn't really show up as much. And a Class D mids and highs amps sounded like hot garbage. But then they got better and better at it now to the point where the switching technology is so fast that you don't hear it anymore. And a Class D amplifier is going to sound exactly the same as a Class AB. The big difference now is the Class AB amp is going to be larger and it's going to be less efficient. It's going to make a lot more heat and it's not going to be as efficient. The Class D amplifier is going to be much smaller and much more efficient, giving you much more of the power you're putting into it back as music. That's the differences for the basic person to understand. The technology that makes that happen is a lot more intricate, but that's the basic idea. Oh yeah, I messed around with old Bose stuff. Yes, Shadow. I started at like seven something, but it's okay. And I told you guys in my last show last week that I was last Friday actually that I was going to be starting at 7 from this point forward and not going to be doing a regular Sunday show anymore because I have some Sundays I just don't feel like it. I'm too tired. And we're going to do it on Friday, but we're going to do it at an earlier time. I'm going to probably start pretty consistently around 7 p.m. on Friday, every Friday, Central Time, 2 hours ago, if you will. And that's how we're going to move forward. I'm going to have some random lives that'll come up at different times, maybe a Sunday live every now and then, but not a consistent Sunday live. The only show that's going to be locked in every week is the Friday show for now. T. Corley, if I was going to do an SQ build sub wise, I'd probably do JL subs. Yes. And it depending on exactly what you're doing, because SQ build, you can get a solid SQ build using any subwoofer. I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, as long as it's in the right box and it's getting the correct signal and everything, and it's not like broken, it's going to produce bass, and you can get that mix right. The box is more important than the subwoofer is, and the box and the tuning of everything. But you can't go wrong with a JL sub. They're good subs. They're just priced pretty high compared to what you could get that was virtually identical for a fourth of the price. So, except for the flat subs, those flat subs are freaking amazing. Okay, what's up, Biggie Smalls? What's more worth it, Sundown or B2 Rampage 15 subs? Now, you said Sundown, but you didn't give me a specific subwoofer. Uh, both. It's what specifically which specific driver works the best for your application. Uh, they're not going to be identical. You're figuring out what driver is better for your application is more important than the name brand. Um, so yeah, it's not as easy. I can't just answer that because there's not an answer for it. It's like, what's better, a Ford or a Chevy? Depends on the vehicle, you know. I mean, depends on what you're trying to do. And a Ford Dually isn't going to compare with a Chevy Caprice or whatever. You know, it's just not the same vehicle. Different name brands, but also two different vehicles. Same general concept. So I've been doing wrong is mixing sub sizes. Yeah, that's not a good idea. You can get away with it as long as they're in different enclosures, but and you can also tune it so that one sub plays a different frequency range than the other, and so they're not fighting each other at the same time. But that gets tricky, and it's a good time to learn that stuff when you're young and you got this stuff. Learn it. You know, play around with those, mixing those two sizes. As long as they're not in the same enclosure, you can do a lot, and positioning them in different places in the room. So here, I'll give you a tip, Joe, Daddy. I'll give you a tip. So let me think about how this works first. I want to make sure I'm giving you good information. There's a thing on the internet. Just if you Google subwoofer crawl, um, you learn about this. But essentially, it's about sub placement in a space, right? And if you put the sub in the center of the room, right in the middle of your room, and then crawl around your room and find the spot where it sounds the loudest at, where that sub is really hammering. It's going to probably be a corner. But crawl around the room until you find the loudest spot. When you find that spot, then go back and put the sub in that spot. Now, if you go back to the center of the room, you should get really good bass response there. And when I say the center of the room, what I mean is where you sit or lay or whatever when you're enjoying music. Put the sub in that location and then crawl around the room until you find a spot where it sounds the loudest. Then move the sub from that location to that new spot and then go back to your location. You should get really good bass response. Um, let's see here. Yep, I just don't put no lithium under the hood. Let's see here. Yes, I am running slaps. I got 4 slaps Oblivion 15 version 2s on 2 slaps Shock 8Ks. And I've got the slaps 2000.4 running my doors and the slaps Mini 160.4 running my A-pillars. So Banshee. On two-way doors with DSP, would you do 8s plus tweeters or 6.5 plus tweeters? I like running larger mid ranges. Um, Either will work if you're not planning on doing mid bass, if you're just trying to keep the pitch up. But I find that the larger cone tends to give the vocal area a lot more authority and a lot more flexibility. It doesn't sound thin. So you can get away with running like a 3.5 on that range, on that straight mid range. But it won't sound the same as running like an 8 or a 10 on those same frequencies. You're going to get a more rounded, full sound out of it. Even if they're both crossed over in the same spot, they don't sound the same. Uh, so that's my personal input on that. More importantly is making sure that you get the back of the speaker closed off so that it's not the sound from the back of the speaker is not coming around and interfering with the front. Um, that's going to be more significant than the cone size. Also, having it be nice and dead and solid so there's nothing rattling or moving around. And having some sort of tunnel that the sound can go through to get into the cabin. So if you've got a speaker mounted on the door frame, and then you've got your panel over it with like holes for the sound to get through, connecting those two with some kind of ring or foam or something like that, so that that sound doesn't go sideways, it goes straight out the hole. That's a thing too. Now I got around that by using custom speaker pods from customspeakerpods.com to mount my subs in, my speakers in. Back in the day, I did two different ones and they worked fine. Um, and I have a discount code. If you go over there, use CAE to save 10% off whatever you buy. But I ended up building custom pods because I wanted to run tens and tweeters in my doors. So I built my doors custom. And that's where we all start, man. But at least you got the internet. Back when I was your age, there wasn't no internet. '04 cab, City Cab, Chevy Silverado, 215, Slaps Oblivion, or SmackDown. If you have the option and the money, SmackDowns because they're stronger. I'm running the Oblivions. I have no problem with them. I'm putting 4,000 watts on each one, and they're doing the thing. They're shaking the world. But the only reason I'm running the Oblivions is because it's more of a budget brand. It's more of a budget line. And my people, you guys want to see what the budget line can do. I mean, can I run the SmackDowns and do a little more? Probably. But that's not the budget line. And we're trying to get people exposed to what the budget line's capable of. And that's why I run the Oblivions. I could run either one. Um, hell yeah, man. Uh, the difference between mid bass and these new 8 PA speakers. Well, you want me to explain the difference between mid bass and a speaker? Um, okay, so the difference between mid bass and mid, I'm assuming that's what you're actually asking. Um, Mid bass plays lower. It's gonna you can get down into that 60 hertz range, 60, 70 hertz, 80 hertz, down in that range, and play up and have a lot more front fill on your bass. Whereas a mid is typically when crossed over at 100 hertz or higher, maybe 300 or 400 hertz. I've got mids right now that are crossed over at 500 hertz. I use my door speakers to play up to five. Well, are we crossed over at five? Yeah, I think so. I think we're crossed over around 500 hertz right now. So I have my big tens playing from uh, my big tens from slaps. I have those playing from 60 hertz up to 500 hertz. And then I have my three and a halfs playing 500 hertz to 5K. And I have my tweeters playing from 5K to infinity. And my subs, of course, are down in the bottom, bringing it up. And I've got a small sub in the front that kind of fills in that gap too. So it's like playing from like 50 or so up to about 100 hertz. And then my big subs play up to 50 hertz. That's basically how my shit's set up. I mean, the numbers aren't perfect, but that's basically how it's set up. A mid bass is basically what a 6.5-inch coaxial speaker that you would buy from any manufacturer is a mid bass and a tweeter. So a mid bass has a lower frequency response abilities, whereas a mid range doesn't. That's the that's the difference. Um, let's see here. I live outside Little Rock, out on Arch Street. Okay. Yeah, everybody lives a little outside of Little Rock. That's why it's expensive, like Sherwood and Maumelle and all those places. I'm talking about T. Corley's response here. Yes, they are, Texas. What's up, D? D. Hermanson. What's up, man? My batteries are going to crap. I hate when that happens. That means your alternator's not doing its job, or the wiring is not right, or the batteries are just wore out. Um, PPI. Oh man, T. Corley, you're gonna get it. You're gonna get El Fuego all hot and bothered talking about PPI and stuff. Uh, Running a slaps 8K. Ah, I haven't had that problem, especially comparing them to something like tar amps. But power is power, man. They make it. They're not as bad as Scar for. Oh my God, Scar is horrible. Power and tar amps pretty bad too. Uh, you're in Missouri. Did you ever see? No, unfortunately, no, I did not. Paying for Chinesium. Real good amp. Still impressed. A year later. Hell yeah. Okay, here you finish this statement. Did you ever see the Dacia subs? This was in the early 2000s. There was a van up there called Big Jim. Never saw it, man. Sorry. Uh, the early 2000s, I wasn't in Springfield at that time. I was in Conway, Arkansas, managing a Wendy's. That's back when my mom passed away. You know what's crazy, man, is I was on duty that night working the Wendy's at Maumelle, actually, if you're familiar with that. And no, I wasn't. I was working in Conway at that time. I was working the one over by Walmart, the Wendy's over there by the Walmart. Store 510, I believe it was. Now I think about it. Wow, I remember that. I don't know. My mom was in the hospital and she, yeah, I had to go to the hospital and I got back. She just passed away while I was at the hospital. And I was back at work the next day, man. I worked through Christmas and all that shit. That was rough. But yeah, that's where I was at in the 2000s, early 2000s. Uh, um, I mean, yeah, it's all about money, man. Exactly. Yeah. What he says right here. Exactly. Which, man, what do you want? You want to pay, the extra money for that sundown name to be on there? I mean, it's up to you. The thing is, too, the Slaps 8K is the same topography, but the components are actually better. And then the other clones of it out there, you go through it and look at each component. The components are actually a step up from most of the clones out there. So it's a good amplifier. Let's see here. Uh, yep. Let's see. I appreciate you for helping, D. That's why I run AGM. Man can't run lithium on the daily in the winter. Bummer. That's not entirely true. Short under lithium can handle a negative 32 degrees at a diminished performance level, but yeah, negative 32 degrees. So that's, 64 degrees below freezing, just to make sure that that's perfectly clear. Um, the version 2s and version 3s will go that low. So they can take quite a bit of cold. And I'm sorry, but if it's negative 32 degrees, I'm not going outside. Screw you all. I ain't going to work. I ain't going nowhere. I just ain't going. Um, Absolutely, brother. Thank you. Dual runs of OFC. Yep. Are you wearing any pants? Am I wearing pants? Actually, I'm wearing shorts. They're boxer shorts. I mean, they're not really underwear. I guess they kind of are underwear. I'm wearing underwear. Yeah, I'm not wearing any pants. Uh, Not exactly. I mean, I walk outside in them, but I don't know. I'm weird, man. I got no love. Okay, so better to run OFC wire, absolutely. Yes, yes, yes. CCA is a terrible idea. Uh, Power 800 watts. I'm trying to follow this conversation and looking for any questions that aren't being currently addressed. Yeah, they make they're small lamps. I got one sitting right there. Um, I got multiples in there in the kitchen. Yeah, I like them. They're little small lamps that can do pretty cool stuff as long as you give them power. You really want like a 20-volt power supply that's got like a 8 or 10 amps output to get the most out of them. But yeah, they'll run on 12 volts as long as you got the amperage. Uh, if it's too loud, you're too old. You got that shit right. What's up, man? Welcome. Uh, Different enclosures be better. Yeah. Hey, man, I appreciate the comment. I really do. But you know what's funny is when I try to research something now, if I'm trying to learn something new, I end up finding myself all the time. So I can't Google anything because I just get me. It's messed up. It really is. Um, let's see here. You're very welcome. 2000. Oh, what's up, man? 2011 Jeep Wrangler Rubicon looking at adding 8-inch mids in the front doors. Going to be shallow as they'll basically be surface mount. Yeah, that's a big pain in the ass. Um, I don't know if customspeakerpods.com makes pods for doors on a Jeep. That'd be interesting to look at. But I know the Jeeps have those little dash speakers that hang out underneath. They're horrible. It's a horrible system. They just didn't think that the audio part through on those vehicles when they started designing them. The doors being detachable means you got to unplug speaker wires to put them in there. Thins, I would probably look at Kenwood. I think Kenwood actually makes a real good thin driver, and I might check into Kicker also. If I'm not mistaken, Kicker makes something that will work. And you're probably going to want marine rated stuff. So you might look at Gale Force and see if they have a thin driver that could work. Gale Force is really good company that makes really sick sounding freaking marine rated speakers. And when I say marine rated, I mean you can put them underwater, like under the damn water. They'll take that. Um, but I'll be looking at marine rated stuff, regardless of whether you ever run to the top down or whatever, uh, because of just the environment that they're in. Doors are just nasty on speakers, really. Um, and Kicker, Kenwood, and Gale Force all make stuff that might be appropriate for what you're doing. You may also consider using some rings underneath them to pull them out some. You can get 8-inch and 6.5-inch rings, but they have to be plastic rings, not MDF rings. And the place where you'll find those pretty quickly is DS18. And they're going to scoff at the cost of them. So just get your head in the right space before you start looking. But DS18 makes a really good plastic spacer rings. They also have RGB in them and stuff. You can light them up. Kind of cool. Uh, see what else we got here. Space constraints. Orion, Depbots, MTX. Yeah. Of those three, I'd prefer the Orion sound signature better, but I don't think the drivers are what you're looking for. And be warned that a lot of times these drivers will actually have slightly oversized baskets. So a prefab may not fit perfectly, like a prefab ring may not fit perfectly around the driver. The driver may be just a little bit too big. So keep that in mind whenever you're selecting stuff and finding out exactly what the cutout is for it and exactly what the inner diameter of the ring is so that you don't run into that problem. Corley said I was doing the shows in Northwest Arkansas and in Oklahoma and Missouri, and then Steve Benton started Midwest SPL, started doing those too. Yeah, the finals this year are going to be in Lebanon, Missouri. Just remember the jingle. Take a run down to Lebanon, to Ozark Harley Davidson. That was a commercial they played forever. That place is closed, but yeah, Lebanon, Missouri is where the finals are going to be this year, so that'll be cool. I'm going to actually go this year because of that, because it's so close. I'm going to try Trunk Thunder. Yeah, just remember that right now the um, timing is a little wonky because, like I said, we're trying to get product in to where he can ship stuff out. So it may be the middle of January or probably closer to the middle of February before anything comes out. So you may not see anything. It may show out of stock. Once he starts putting it where it's showing in stock again, then you can jump in there and order. Right now, he's got all pre-orders turned off, so we can actually catch up. Um, I mean, it's a thing. Just hook the wires up, man. Positive to negative, positive, positive, negative, negative. But again, don't put anything that's not sealed inside your house because it off gases. So it needs to be something that's maintenance free, that has no way to open up the top of the battery and put water in it. It needs to be sealed up. AGM is usually the best choice, and you can do that. Yeah, there's nothing. So yeah, you'd probably want to use a ring. Yep. Yeah, and getting a speaker that's shallow but also sounds good is hard because when you flatten out the cone a whole lot, you lose the rigidity of that cone shape, and the speaker starts to not sound as good. That's why when I specifically told you the ones I told you is because those guys have got good designs that allow for shallow drivers and still have good, solid, rigid cones and good cone control. And that's why I pointed you in those directions. What's up, man? It is definitely not morning, but it's morning for you and good morning to you. Uh, oh, I love it. America. Oh, he's spelling it right. It's America. America. Yeah, look into the Gale Force stuff. That's some really good drivers. They're not cheap, but they are really, really good drivers, and they sound really, really good. Um, let's see here. Plan on building my own spacers from PBC ABS. There you go. Uh, exactly. I'm just going through here reading. I'm trying to catch up. Ah, we have. Um, we have. So D said, I know you're not supposed to run a slapset K at point 0.5, but I love it. Yeah. Again, let me preface this by saying, if you run your slaps Shock 8K at point 0.5 ohms and you blow it up, you may or may not be able to get a warranty on that. Okay. And they can tell. However, if you are going to do that, double up your power runs. Use doublers on all your power and ground runs. You're going to need that cooling because you're going to push that amp thermally past where it's designed to work. So running double power runs, double ground runners, the doublers on all of them are a thing you're going to want to do if you want longevity out of it. Can they do it? Yes. Um, should you do it? You know, I kind of leave that out there. Um, that is correct. Oh my God. Thoughts on older Audi vehicles with the Bang& Olufsen systems? Hey, bro, if it sounds good, run it. I mean, that's you. It's up to your ear. If it sounds good to your ear, rock it. So, and there, I'm going to tell you, if you're looking at an Audi doing anything to that, it's going to suck so bad. So bad. Like they do so many weird things to vehicles. So if it sounds good, just bump it. You know what I'm saying? Because you ain't going to like how much work it takes to change anything in any significant way. It's one rabbit hole that leads to another rabbit hole that leads to another rabbit hole. And you'll, by the time you've done everything, you'll be like, why in the hell didn't I just leave it like it was? That's how that works. Uh, Doug spelled it right. Oh, I got you. Flat subs equals a blow through. What? Flat subs equals a blow through into the bed of a truck with 412s or 415s. Oh, oh, I see what you did. I had to go way back to figure that one out. Um, I mean, the blow through is going to hit way harder, like much louder, but it's also a hole in the cab of your truck. So, would I do it? Well, I had an extended cab Ford. I just took the back seat out and just built a window down wall in there with four 12-inch audio pipe, the 4X audio pipe subs, and it was really loud. I had a I had those subs on the Orion XTR 2500.1 amplifier, and that amplifier makes like 6,000 watts or some shit, but it needs a ton of power to do it. It's a good setup, but I don't know if I'd cut a hole or not. It all depends on the truck, I guess. But I would be very tempted to, especially if it wasn't an extended cab. If it was like a partial extended cab, I'd be really tempted to. If I had kids and shit, if I had more human beings that I had to put in there, I absolutely would do a blow through. But me, I don't have people behind me. I just have my wife, and she can sit in the front there. She's not like in the back, like all stretched out, and she's up in the front with me. So I can put a sub box in the cab. But if I had to put humans behind me, absolutely 100%, I would put a blow through in there. I'm just looking through Shadow's posting. Empty parking lots. How do I test my subs? Oh, okay. Yeah, fair. I just crank that shit up in the driveway most of the time. Main reason is because I'm grown and I can get away with it. But I also communicate with my neighbors. They all know what I do, obviously. they very much know what I do. But I've verbally communicated with them. So, like, I don't do this outside of business hours. Like from 9 to 5, I'm good, right? And I usually don't do it very long. I'll keep it to a minimum. I just wanted to apologize ahead of time, let you guys know that I occasionally crank this thing up. If you hear thunder all of a sudden, it's probably me. Give me a few minutes, it'll probably go away. If you have a problem with it, just let me know. I give them my phone number, call me up, and I'll shut it down. You know, just let me know. This is called communication. This is something we learned back in the 70s and the 80s. It doesn't really happen anymore, but that's how I do it. And then, of course, there's empty parking lots, closed down businesses. Like there's a bank down there that's no longer open. I can park in the drive through that bank, and I got a big, huge bank on one side, and I got another building over here. Nice brick walls, kind of traps the sound. I can get away with that. Sometimes I just go to the freaking Waffle House and bust it, shake all their windows. It just depends on my mood, you know. Uh, I'm not messed up about putting a blow through in because I cut my truck up and bag it. Yeah, yeah. There you go. Yeah. I mean, if you're gonna be doing that anyway, shit, dude, blow through all the way. The key thing with the blow through is, and this is really important, really, really important. You can't use MDF in it at all because it will absolutely get wet. No matter what you coat it with, it's going to get wet. It's got to be plywood, and you're going to want to seal it up as much as you possibly can uh, to keep water off of it, and then put a good bed cover over the bed to protect it one more layer. If you get any MDF anywhere near it, it's going to swell up and turn to shit. It's going to happen. No matter what you do to it, it's going to turn to shit. It might take it a month, it might take it a year, but it's going to turn to shit. So nothing but plywood, preferably marine grade, high grade stuff, and bed line the shit out of the box, and then also have a good sealed up camper shell or a bed cover that seals and keeps the water out. Those are important things. But if you do all that, you're going to really like the blow through. And your cab, you got to really structurally reinforce the back of the cab because it's gonna all that sheet metal. Once you cut that hole, all that sheet metal is going to be flexing all over the place. So you're going to have to figure that out too. Make it really strong. The back of that cab needs to be super strong, or you're going to wind up busting your rear window because the back of the cab will do this, and it'll break your back glass. You got to prevent all that movement. You got to lock it down. Let's see here. Yeah, it's not a good idea. You could do it, but you're playing a very dangerous game. You mean Dynamat? Yes, but you're going to want more than that. You're going to want to put like structure. Like you got the bed, and then you've got the cab outer shell, and then sometimes you have a cab inner shell. So you got three layers of metal that are just going to come to an end and be here, here, and here, and you've got to stop them from moving around. So you're going to want to put. You can't really do anything about the bed to the outer shell of the cab. That's going to have an accordion boot in it. But the outer shell of the cab and the inner shell of the cab, you can put material inside there to make those two work together, and adding plywood back there, gluing it in place, bolting it, screwing it, making it solid as shit is what you want to do. You don't want any movement back there. Custom boxes out of Texas. No, I have not. Sounds cool. Uh, Custom boxes out of Texas. I'm mounting. I'm in Houston. Never heard of them. Yeah, me either. That's a new thing. I remember the custom trucks from Texas and Chevy line they released back in the '80s. They had a place down there that was customizing Chevy trucks, brand new ones. They did really wicked paint jobs and did all the wood on the interior, and they put the cool captain's chairs and everything in there that I mean velour and all that. They were really nice trucks. Really cool trucks. Like the coolest freaking truck on the planet. I mean, yeah, they were sick, dude. They put rims on them and everything. I mean, it was all factory warranties, brand new trucks, but they were completely decked out. Could I show you? It's not complicated. You're making it complicated, man. And I don't have the ability to show you anything right now. But it's not hard. It's just simple. Just pretend like this is an amplifier, right? So this is a voltmeter, but we're pretending it's a little amplifier. Power and ground right here. And you have a remote wire. Okay, so you got your 12 volt or your ground, you're always on, and you have an accessory wire, which in this case, you don't even have that on the Kenter amps. You just have a ground and a power. Hook those to the battery. That's it. It'll work. You hook the battery charger up or the power supply up to the battery the same way you hook this up. So you got positive and positive going to positive and negative going to negative. And that's it. That's all there is to it. You're making it complicated, man. It's all right, though. S10 with built-in metal box under the window line. It was crazy loud. Yeah, I've done actually the box I had in my Ford F-150 extended cab, which is the under window line box. My buddy Carmel built it for a guy to put in a big truck. It was actually sized and shaped to fit on the top bunk in this big truck, and the guy ended up switching up things, and so he had this big old box sitting in his shop. I was like, "What are you doing with that?" He's like, "Oh, you want it?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, you can have it." I said, "I'll give him $100 for it because that's how I roll." And I put that in my pickup truck, and it barely fit, but it did fit side to side, and it fit right below the window line, like about half an inch, and it was loud as shit in there with those audio pipe subs. It's crazy. All right, guys, I am going to be checking the hell out. I'm tired. And you don't start no fires. And I appreciate you guys for stopping in. We had a lot of fun tonight, and I got a lot of work to do on this song, and I got to eat. I ain't eaten nothing yet, so I got to eat and do all that. But you guys have been wonderful, and I'll see you guys next Friday. And you know what? Let's get the Doug out of here.
Yeah. Yeah. Out here banging up and down the street, slamming it to the ground. Big subwoofers are getting loud. You can feel the booming sound. Getting ready to go. Got it shined up for the show. Power's charging, amps are amping, gonna let the woofers blow. Another one bites the dust. Another one bites the dust. And another one goes, and another one goes, and another one bites the dust. We got more at home. Another one bites the dust. Eyes are glowing and the amps smoking. Subs are cherry red. Let me keep jamming, gotta keep the bass slamming. Gonna go hard till they're dead. Full power, gotta let it go. 20 hertz in the floating air. Sparks are flying, voice coils are frying, and the smoke is in the air. Another one bites the dust. Another one bites the dust. And another one goes, and another one goes, and another one bites the dust. Hey, we got more at home. Another one bites the dust.